Well, it looks like Marvel Studios is finally going to start making full use of the multiverse saga. We have Robert Downey Jr. returning not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom, although I believe he is going to return as Iron Man, which we'll talk about in this video. We have Haley Atwell returning as Agent Carter, and it's been confirmed that Chris Evans is going to be returning as Nomad. But it looks like that is not all, as we have a report that states Chris Evans is going to return to play multiple characters and multiple variants in the MCU. Now, there seems to be quite a debate online on whether or not this is a good idea or not, to actually address the fact that we are seeing variants of characters that the main cast characters know. Like Tony Stark, the fact that Doctor Doom is going to be played by Robert Downey Jr. and will of course look like Tony Stark. Some people think that of course they should address that in the MCU. For example, if a variant of Captain America shows up from another universe and it looks just like the Steve Rogers that we've known for the entirety of the MCU so far up until Endgame, should the movies address the fact that it's a variant that looks exactly like Steve? Or even if they're not a variant of the character, should they still address the fact that this person looks like another character? For example, Doctor Doom, although he is not a Tony Stark variant as far as we know, he looks exactly like the Tony Stark that we know from the MCU. Should they address the fact that they look the same in the movie? Let me know what you think they should do in the comments. I think they should, and I actually think it could be a key component to some of the storytelling in these new movies that we're going to get, especially the Avengers movies. But let's talk about Chris Evans returning to play more than one character, including an evil character. And I know some people right away are thinking Captain Hydra, however, that might not be the case. According to Alex Perez from thecosmiccircus.com, credible insider, he states that many actors are going to pull double duty, as he says, in Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. When asked in a recent Q&A on his Discord, what role do you think Chris Evans will have in Avengers Doomsday, he said this: "One of the rumors I had heard for these films was that a lot of actors might be pulling double duty when it comes to the characters they portray. Evans could be a prime example of that because he could be playing a number of characters in these upcoming films. One of those will definitely be Steve Rogers from the end of Endgame, who went on to live happily ever after with Peggy, who was recently confirmed to also be coming back for Doomsday. The confirmation that she'll be Agent Carter rather than Captain Carter indicates we'll be heading back to that timeline. I've also heard that Evans could be portraying another character in the movie that stands alongside Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom." Now let's talk about this before we go on to talk about a different character he could be playing according to Alex, and just talk about the Captain America that could show up. He states that Chris Evans is returning to play a Captain America from the end of Avengers Endgame, who went on to live happily ever after with Peggy Carter. And he confirms that Peggy is coming back as well, which we did hear last week. So just to clarify right here, he is not saying that old man Captain America is coming back, not that Captain America, but the actual Captain America who went back in time and lived out his life with Peggy. So it looks like the Captain America that we saw at the end of Avengers Endgame that came back, old man Cap, he might have already went through a big multiversal war, depending on how Marvel Studios wants to talk about time. So what Alex Perez is stating here is that at some point in time in the timeline where Steve and Peggy are together, they're going to get dragged into a multiversal war. Now that might not necessarily mean that old man Cap at the end of Endgame has been through a multiversal war, because this might just create a branch timeline. Plus, we know the multiverse is going to be destroyed and then rebuilt, hopefully at the end of Secret Wars. So we're not really 100% sure that old man Cap at the end has been through a multiversal war, but what we do know is a young Captain America and a young Peggy Carter, who are together because Steve Rogers went back in time in Endgame, will be joining the multiversal war in Avengers Doomsday and or Avengers Secret Wars, which will be really cool to see if this happens, because a lot of us have been wondering, well, what exactly happened with Steve Rogers when he went back in time and lived out an entirely new life? Well, it looks like we are going to find out. But it looks like that is not the only variant that Chris Evans is going to be playing in Avengers Doomsday / Avengers Secret Wars, if you even want to really call that a variant, because technically that would be the real Steve Rogers, our main real 616 Steve Rogers. But moving on to another character he could play, Alex Perez said this in response to this question: "Since it's been reported that Chris Evans is returning for Avengers Doomsday, do you know if he's playing Johnny Storm again or Captain Hydra?" Alex responded, "It's looking preemptively like it'll be the Captain America that went on to live happily ever after with Peggy, but I heard rumors that his stint as Johnny Storm isn't necessarily over." Now, he said this after stating that we could see some of these variants team up with Doctor Doom. So it's very possible that we could be looking at an evil Johnny Storm, in which I think they should do this. Again, I think they should take full advantage of the multiverse saga right now. Have Chris Evans return as a normal Steve Rogers Captain America, have him return as an evil Johnny Storm, because of course he played Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four films and Deadpool and Wolverine, and have him return as other variants we haven't seen, like Nomad, who Jeff Snyder reported he's going to be playing. I personally like this idea of having actors play multiple different variants and having them all show up on screen. I don't think it's something they should do very often, but they do need to do it at least once or twice in one of the films or both. And according to Alex, Marvel Studios is going to handle this pretty well, the whole cameo situation and the fan service. When replying to a question that states, with Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans returning for Doomsday, could this mean that Marvel is relying more on fan service and cameos instead of creating a good story? Alex Perez responded with this: "This has always been about creating a balance. Marvel adaptations in media have existed for many decades now, and Kevin Feige is taking the opportunity to honor the legacy of these projects by giving it the opportunity to shine in the next Avengers films. But I wouldn't call it fan service. The way they want to approach it is sort of like how they did with Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine. The characters that showed up in those films wouldn't qualify as cameos. They served an actual purpose and role in the films they were in. These legacy appearances are going to be a big chunk of the next couple of Avengers films, and there are going to be a lot. Because when talking about a secondary antagonist to Avengers Doomsday, so another villain besides Doom, Alex said, "It's funny you assume that a movie of this magnitude only has one secondary antagonist. What I can tell you is that the secondary antagonist, whoever they may be, according to my sources, are going to be variants. There is going to be an overwhelming number of variants in these movies. A lot more than just the characters set to appear in these movies that are from Earth 616. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad, and some are going to be really worse." And I personally love that idea. I love the idea that we are going to see some variants of people that are normally good be so bad that it just completely throws everybody off, including the people in the movie, the Avengers. Just imagine Peter Parker / Spider-Man, Sam Wilson as Captain America, the Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, the Hulk / Bruce Banner, them coming in contact with someone who looks exactly like Steve Rogers, who is Steve Rogers, but then finding out that they are just incredibly evil and that person starts to try and kill them. I think this would actually be pretty epic, and I do trust Marvel Studios to do this in a rather graceful way. If Deadpool and Wolverine and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness taught us anything, it's that these characters can return and they can do crazy cool cameos from famous actors and old returning actors in a really delicate and great way. And I do think fan service is a part of what makes some of these movies good. It's the MCU. Fan service is a part of it, and if it can be done tastefully well, which again, they've proved that they can do, then it can be just really, really epic and can really add to a movie. So I'm not personally really worried about all the variants showing up. I think it's going to be awesome to see. But go ahead, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Are you excited to see all of these variants return or not? Are you worried about it? And are you excited to see Chris Evans return and play multiple variants, including possibly an evil Johnny Storm? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.